Supreme Court upholds the law, what would you seek to change about it, Mr.
King? If the Supreme Court of the United States strikes down the ObamaCare, is what I like to call it, and I think they will, based on what I've seen and heard and based on what is lawful, then we need to move forward with trying to control health care costs by letting the free market control the health care costs. When we let patients have more control over what their plan is, when we let patients and doctors deal with each other on a fair basis, when we let insurance companies compete across state lines, when we enact tort reform so that doctors aren't scared of malicious and lawsuits that don't make any sense, and frivolous lawsuits. When we do these kind of things and we let the free market take over, then we're going to have what we need in healthcare, and it's going to control costs because people are inherently economists who will control costs and not let people rip them off. When the government interferes with it, which is what they've been doing even before ObamaCare, they distort the market and they keep people from being able to control their own costs. And that's what's been going on. Anybody that has an insurance plan, that probably includes most of you, know what I'm talking about. I can't even read the stuff they send me, and I'm a doctor. It's ridiculous. The second question, I've only got 28 seconds to go, was what if we keep ObamaCare and the Supreme Court of the United States proves to have a brain tumor that Dr. Whitley needs to work on? Well, then I think I will do everything I can in the Congress to strike down ObamaCare in toto, completely and totally. I'll try to defund it. I'll try to do everything I can possibly do to get rid of ObamaCare because I don't have enough time to go into the problems it will cause.
Thank you.
Don't have any time at all.
Ms. Rowan.
There are several approaches, and Scott mentioned a couple of them. The health savings accounts are structured so that people put money aside as younger individuals to pay for health expenses that accrue when they're older. What it's trying to do is to have folks pay first dollar expenses, and you couple that with some kind of catastrophic health care plan, because it is a zoo out there. I mean, I tried when I had elective surgery to shop. I couldn't even get an answer from the hospital how much the surgery was going to cost. They said, well, there's 3 guys, and the anesthesiologist gets this, and the hospital's charging that, and the doctor doing the surgeon's going to do that. And we don't know, because there might be something else we have to do. So we can't tell you how much it's going to cost. And that's like the wrong answer. One of the things we should experiment is have the states use Medicaid as a health savings account, and perhaps allow the beneficiaries to keep the cash, the money they don't spend, to put a huge downward pressure on non-routine checkups, like annual checkups, so that they don't use the money and drive up healthcare costs. Tort reform is critical. Several individuals have talked about that. As long as doctors are getting higher than your entire salary and having to pay it for insurance malpractice costs, then increasingly folks across the state won't have health care in rural areas. And finally, we need to be able to sell insurance across state lines so that we're not stuck with the gold-plated plans. And if ObamaCare is still here, we have to rip it out by its roots, because otherwise it will destroy the economy and our liberty.
Thank you. Mr. Steen.
Yes, sir. If ObamaCare is enacted, then I think we're going to be in trouble. I would vote to repeal the act because of the individual mandate. I think it's totally wrong. I think it's unconstitutional, and I think it strikes down the whole law. The impact of small businesses. Now, why have we seen so many waivers being requested from labor unions and large businesses, small businesses? Because this has a huge impact on all businesses. If the if it's stricken down, I think we have to allow insurance companies a right in the free market to compete across state lines. We're already seeing a lot of the insurance companies agree that this would be a good thing for them, and I believe it will be a good thing for consumers. I think anytime you can let the free market take care of health insurance or any other matter, we're better off. And I think that tort reform is something we've already done in North Carolina. I voted for that, and we passed that in the North Carolina House and Senate this year, and it was signed into law. So we need to do maybe a little bit more of that to make sure that our physicians are protected from all types of tort and frivolous lawsuits. But we have done some of those reforms already in the state of North Carolina, and I think we're setting ourselves up. ObamaCare has already caused a lot of hospitals to gear up for ObamaCare if it goes in. Now they're having to backpedal a little bit. So we've got a lot of uncertainty out there that has been created by this act and this act alone. And I hope we resolve it one way or the other very soon.
Well, as the only physician on this panel in this particular race, I can tell you that the PPACA, as it's called, probably one of the two worst pieces of legislation to ever pass Congress. I do think that the health care law will be stricken down on the individual mandate aspect being unconstitutional. As far as what can we do? Well, once we get that out of the way, we'll see a rebound in the economy, pretty substantial, I believe. There are a lot of things that has happened in this economy. If you go back to 1982, our friend Ted Kennedy was instrumental in passing a law that brought about the HMOs. And the HMOs changed health insurance forever. Went from basically an indemnity type insurance policy to prepaid health plans. And that's really where costs started going out of this world, because it put a bureaucrat or an insurance person between you and the patient. The way to lower cost is to put the patient back in charge. If you have to pull a few dollars out of your pocketbook and pay the doctor for your routine visits, you're going to save a lot of money. It comes down to basic economics. If you're going to use your insurance every time you sneeze, every time you buy this little drug, that little drug, an armband, some type of brace, etc., you're going to pay a lot of money. And the insurance companies are complicit in this particular piece of legislation. Now, if it is not repealed, then we all have a problem. We have a real problem, because you're not going to be able to get many of the different types of insurance plans that you could get before this PPACA was passed. You can't buy the catastrophic policies. You can't buy the mini-med plans. That's why McDonald's and a lot of these big these big corporations have. And they know if they didn't give them the year waiver, once this kicks in January 1/14, all these people would be without health insurance. So I'm betting on the Supreme Court.
Thank you. Mr. Rudd. Thank you. If the Supreme Court strikes down Obamacare, then I've already mentioned that what we've got to do is return free market principles to health care. And my colleagues have mentioned some of those options. As I mentioned myself, the health savings accounts, giving patients more control over how the money's spent, and combining that with catastrophic insurance that has a high deductible, give us the flexibility. But coupled with that, we've got to have transparency of costs. So hospitals and doctors and providers need to provide information about what they charge, what the actual costs are for procedures and the pills and so forth. Tort reform's got to be a big part of it. It's an absolute driver of cost. Insurance companies competing across state lines has been mentioned. The other thing is small businesses need the right to band together to purchase insurance, so they have the same economies of scale that larger companies have. And so I think that's important. If the law is not struck down, then we've got to repeal it. And I'm the only one up here who can have any impact on that debate, because this law will be fully implemented in 2014. And that means it'll be a full-blown entitlement, and it'll be just like trying to take away Social Security. We've got to eliminate Obamacare in 2013. That's our one shot. One of my colleagues in the last debate said that it'll take them 2 years to learn the ropes in Washington. And that's true. I've been to the front lines. I've worked with conservatives in Washington trying to stop these policies. I know the chairman and the subcommittee chairman on the committees of jurisdiction. And so if you elect me, then you will have a voice in the Obamacare debate next year, because I understand that process, and I'll be a part of it. And so it's important to keep keep that in mind. Thank you.